Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you. We said we'd come back and have a look at EuroBasket, so here we are. Great Britain have played a couple of games. I almost don't know where to start with all of this, Dave, because obviously the results weren't tremendously good, but the old rant from last week sort of got a bit of traction, and I think you said last week this was having tangible effect, and I think we've seen the tangible effect over the last few days.
Yeah. Firstly, how do you feel? Have you had plenty of showers this week, Dan?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you feel, now for the first time in 55 episodes that you've delved into clickbait. I'm just wondering if you feel a little bit unclean.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not really my style, but
we've gone for the highbrow. We've been the Tchaikovsky as opposed to the Johnny Rotten. And suddenly, like everything in the end, it all dissolves into chasing people, doesn't it? But no, and also thank you, if I may say it, to Sam Nita for his alerting his gazillion followers to what we said. It's kind of a bit weird, really, because it's not meant to be controversial. Not really. Neither you nor me are controversialists.
No.
And I'm not, fueled by, certainly speaking for myself, and I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for you, not fueled by anything other than a desire for things to improve, whether that is with our assistance or without it. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. More being the commentariat on the sideline. But I'm very grateful for everybody who did listen, and for both of us, and has given positive feedback.
The problem is that both you and I come at this really primarily as fans of Great Britain basketball. We want to see the players succeed at the top level. But both you and I have been in and around the game for long enough to see, the challenges that arise if things aren't done properly, and we can see they're not being done properly. So it's that sort of thing. It's the frustration of actually the players on court have got to EuroBasket, and you said it last week, really, given the resources we have in terms of around the game, not the personnel, we ought not to be there. But the fact that we are, and then are hamstringing our players. I mean, Gabe gave a great interview to Ball in Europe, and talking about, well, nobody's going to feel sorry for us or whatever, but it doesn't make it right. That's the problem, isn't it?
And there's a few things. I mean, I've yet to do any formal research for any podcast that we've done. Probably done more than 50 of them, simply because otherwise I like my life, and digging into it too much is going to be problematic. But it's tough because we talk too much, I think, in generalities at times, without wishing to get into the personal. You don't want to get into the personal because it's not generally about personalities, but it's also not just about kind of broad brush stuff. It's pretty detailed stuff. And I'm just looking at, I kind of went back and tried to start and build this all from, well, what would I think, what could have been done differently? Because it's easy to criticize what hasn't been done.
Yeah.
So how differently could things have operated? And let's just think about it. On the 22nd of July, that was the closing date for applications for the vacant chairmanship position of GB Basketball. The 22nd of July. Now, GB Basketball, by its nature, is kind of an organization which focuses in and around certain periods of time. There's like intense activity, then there's no activity. Intense activity, and there's no activity. So, for instance, you have the age group play during the summer. During the winter, it's primarily going to be the national federations and the clubs that are taking the kids on, and the Aspire program and all that stuff. But the age group programs during the summer, and obviously the national team programs during the windows, right? So, what is just about the biggest thing going on in world basketball at the moment? EuroBasket. This is a world tournament. It's got all the superstars in, probably more than we could ever imagine. The NBA has changed to the point whereby, you know, there are so many good quality European players, and basically they're all playing. Right, so it's EuroBasket. When does EuroBasket start? EuroBasket starts the 1st of September. We made it.
Yeah.
We're at the party. We're at the table, right? 22nd of July, those applications were deadline. Well, there should have been a meeting on the 25th or the 26th of July.
Yeah.
The interviews arranged the following week.
Yeah.
And there should have been decision made the week after that. Because
Yeah.
at the moment, we are, and that's like the first, second week in August. Because at the moment, we're utterly rudderless. Utterly rudderless. And there's no argument that being rudderless is better than where we were before, to be honest, with the way the director was pointing. But it's still awful, right? So when it comes down to the question of accountability, what do you then look to? You then look to, well, you look to the board members. But we all know that the board members are basically people who are board members for the national associations and a couple of people who are co-opted on. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to go in. I don't know them. I know of one. I've spoken to one before. Well, spoken to Gavin Williams because when I was shouting at him when he's refereeing. And spoken to him off the court, and I'm quite sure an absolutely dedicated servant to Welsh basketball. Right. I don't know any of the rest, but I've got no reason to believe that all the other people aren't in the same kind of ilk. Yeah. Servants of the sport doing what they can. Right. But then I look at the website and I look at. There's 9 directors on there, and I look at, well, what are each of their individual responsibilities in relation to the Great Britain Basketball Board, right? Because from my perspective, and I think this is logical, you'd expect to have, you know, one individual who would be responsible for finance, one individual who would be responsible for commercial, a performance individual, maybe a organization, operational director. All those have the jobs divvied up, you know, to use a phrase. And that's, there's not, you know, there's nothing.
The interesting thing is because the point you're making is that on the website it basically tells you nothing if you go and log. There's nothing to know. But I sort of look at that through the prism of, I spent 11 years as a chair of governors of a local school, and Ofsted makes us publish on the, so you go to my school and you'll find, I'm not on there anymore, obviously, because I'm no longer a governor, but you will find all the meetings I went to and what committees I sat on and all of that. And I guess I look at it through that sort of prism, because it's a similar sort of thing. It's somebody volunteering to support something because they think it's a good cause locally, sort of thing, at a lower level, obviously. But actually, why doesn't UK sport have like minimum standards of that? So your website has to have all of that, those bits of information on that you're talking about now.
Well, it's quite, I mean, firstly, you know, we've all had fed up with the Brexit related reference to faceless bureaucrats. But you go on the website, they are literally, you know, there are no pictures. Pictures are coming, apparently. Well,
I always railed against the pictures of the governors on the school website. So
well, whatever. If you don't want to put them up there, don't put them up there, but don't say they're on their way, because it just looks amateurish. Yeah. Right. We then, you know, you look at, there is, so there's no divvying up of responsibilities, which basically means there can be no accountability at all in relation to this. You know, to say it's rudderless is probably an understatement. You know, when what it tends to leave is the implication, and this is my supposition, based on the evaluation of the evidence that I see, that in reality, what this was something which was controlled very centrally by the chairman, right? Because you don't see anybody else having any specific responsibilities. You don't know when the board meetings were. You don't know how many they have. One assumes they have very few, which means that basically it appears to have been something that's been run from the centre without any particular responsibility by somebody who was, by all accounts, a very good or certainly a successful athletics coach, right? And that's it. Not a delegator, not a communicator. In fact, we now know, due to the report that came out, somebody really was not suitable to be in charge of other individuals. Right? That's where we're at. So then the question comes from that. Where do you go then? I mean, who puts these people in charge?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the question I don't know now. I've put, I've been quite upfront on Twitter for those who follow to say I have applied to be elected and I have applied for various roles within the organisation.
So then I guess my question to you then is, who was appointing? You obviously didn't sadly get appointed, but who was appointing?
I wouldn't say sadly. I spoke to somebody who was effectively a headhunter.
Yeah.
So somebody who'd been invited by UK. I don't know who by whoever the appointing body is, and I still don't know, to evaluate individuals and look at against the criteria as to whether or not they are suitable for whatever role that was being done. So basically, it's hived off to somebody to management.
No, which I get, because I mean at that sort of level, that's why they have specialist recruitment places.
I don't know by whom.
But it's that question is, who is appointing that and who is setting because obviously you didn't meet the criteria. So the question would be, is the criteria, because there's a number of people who think you would be eminently suitable. A number, at least 3 or 4 on Twitter, Dave.
Yeah, well, that's a number. I know one's the number, Dan. No, I'm not.
But my point is, so what is the criteria? Because if the criteria ends up with an athletics coach rather than somebody who's spent as much time in basketball as you have, and obviously you've got your legal expertise as well.
I wouldn't say expertise, but
but it is the question is, what is the criteria, and is the criteria correct?
Yeah, well, they are. I mean, I don't want to get into this who appoint to and why didn't I get interviewed and all this stuff, because
but it's not even about you. It's okay. No, it's so how do we get Kieran Achara, Joe Leadham Warner, people like that involved at that level? Because surely that's, when you look elsewhere, there are sports people who've retired who then become leaders of their federations. That happens in basketball and in other sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the criteria certainly for the chairperson's role were laid out in the GB basketball website, so they're there to see. What unfortunately, it may well be that they were bitten in relation to what happened before in relation to the previous chairman, so that they're being very, very careful as to the way that they measure people against said criteria. And one of those criteria, entirely understandably, was experience of operating at what they call a board level.
Yeah.
Now, what that tends to mean is that, from my understanding, you have to be on a board to get to get
board experience.
Board experience, and what that tends to result in. Sorry, excuse me. What that tends to result in is this. What we've seen over the past 10 years. The cycle of people in various different sports who kind of cycle around different sports as trusted public funding administrators, but unfortunately come to whichever sport they're at now with no knowledge or very limited knowledge of what it is that actually needs to be done. And that's a cycle which has, I'm afraid, failed over the past part of 15 years. But the only question I have, and I still don't quite get it, is whether it is who appoints the appointer. So so GB Basketball is a conglomeration, a super organisation on top of Wales Basketball, Scotland Basketball, and England Basketball. So logically, it should be those 3 organisations that appoint the chair of GB Basketball. But as I've explained, a little bit last week, there's an inherent conflict there. There is an inherent conflict there, and you can't, because they've all got people on the board. Yeah. So you can't have people on the board appointing the person who's to be their chairman. It just doesn't make any sense. So I rather suspect that UK Sport, and I know we're getting into this a bit technically here, but I rather suspect that it's UK Sport who have quite a large kind of guiding hand in what they do. But anyway, the point that I tried to make quite concisely 15 minutes ago and failed is that this should have been done.
Yeah.
Right. It should have been done because EuroBasket is a window to the world.
Yeah.
Right. And what better way to start afresh than to have your new chairman show up at the first day of the players' camp, whenever that is, sit down with the team, sit down with the group, and tell them this is what we appreciate you, and this is how we're going to take this forward, and make a personal connection to the people who've put in so much time over the past 20 years. At least, and it might not be that they can make every promise, but at least show some degree of willing and face, and then do the same with the press. I mean, up here, I'm very much kind of a believer of the Kevin Keegan doctrine, which is you shoot for the stars, and if you fall short, you're still in space.
Yeah.
None of this bumbling by on the bottom and just hoping.
Yeah.
And the way of doing that is, unfortunately, it's the Gary Neville thing. Is it the leaders or is it the players? It's the leaders.
Yeah.
And what a way of starting that would have been. Now it gets worse because what's actually happened is diametrically the opposite to that, right? The thing's been left leaderless for 7 weeks since the closing of applications, right? No one from the GB board has said a word publicly. When the players fly into Milan on Wednesday, and as you probably gathered, they're the last team in.
Yep.
Never good being the last or the first, I tend to find. It tends to not quite right, but they're the last team in, right? And they have to therefore get ready, get sorted, get associated with the conditions in the building and all that stuff, and then they've got to do all the media on Thursday, right? So now, what's the first question that any journalist would ask of any general sports case? Any manager the day before a tournament, it's going to be, well, Jurgen or Thomas or Pep, how's preparation going?
Yeah.
It's not a complicated question.
Yeah.
It's the question that's going to be asked, right? And of course, what we heard was that the journalists we have out there were prevented from asking that question. And the players were told that, and the press officer said, we're not answering any questions about prep. We're not having any questions about our training camp or preparation. So not only do they not take the opportunity to change things and make it a new broom and a fresh start, they then double down on the nothing to see here type of situation, which is an insult to the players, because it puts them right up on top of the castle, ready to be shot off. If I put it this way, it puts them in the red jackets in the charge of the light brigade.
Okay, at the end of the day, if you don't talk about that, what you talk about is they've lost 2 games by 50 points, and then it falls the players get the blame for losing 2 games by 50 points. Exactly.
So basically, what it is it's administrators or that place, the press officer, putting the players up there to be shot at, without allowing even on the most generalized question, without allowing any sensible discussion as to why it is that they've been put in that situation. And it's taken Mark Clark, obviously, who's got a connection with Dan, to raise this in the commentaries. He did it in the Latvia commentary and subsequently on Twitter, right? And it's taken Gabe, who got caught in the mix zone. Interview. Yeah, he did a mix zone interview where there's no one looking over his shoulder, and he answered the questions in the most impressively honest, straightforward, matter-of-fact, professional sportsman way.
Yeah.
Right? But what does it say about the organisation that couldn't have been done on Wednesday, on Thursday, that somebody couldn't have said, there isn't anybody there from the federation to answer that question. There isn't anybody willing to put their head up. It's inadequate. But it's bordering on the cowardly, and I don't say that lightly, because I don't imagine anybody is a coward. But the reality is that's what's left over. They're not. The only people who are there are the coach and the players to basically answer for everything. And as Gabe said so eloquently, no one's interested. No one makes any excuses. Well, the press are interested, because the one thing we've developed, I think, over the past 12 months, and with the explosion of basketball talking heads on the internet, if I can put it that way, of which we are too, and there are a number of others, is that there's a far more detailed understanding of the difficulties and the problems that present themselves. I think the basketball community is more informed than ever. And I think that's why you're getting this kickback at the moment, because it's not it's not just just politics again. It's not that, the fingers are now being pointed
and the reality is that the last time we were at the EuroBasket, when we didn't do very well, the only thing anybody talked about was the performance on the court. Whereas now people are at least looking and going, well, hang on a minute, there's more to performance on the court than when the ball goes up at the start of the game.
Yeah, and I obviously raised that last week. That's because all the other teams have raised the level, and I'm watching some of these other games, and they're awesome. Games are awesome, right? And to deprive our guys of the chance to to give their best shot against all of these teams is just criminal. But also not to deal directly with the issues that face us is also impressive. And there was another opposite comment on Twitter. The only national team without a TV deal. Who's the director in charge of that? Well, I'll tell you, there's silence. It's like one of those Western movies, it's quiet, too quiet.
The
only
the thing is,
kit sponsor. Who's the director for that?
I like the fact that I can sign up to Courtside 1891 and watch whatever game I want to watch and go back and blah blah blah. But actually, that doesn't get it out to people who aren't me. You know what I mean? Whereas if it was on some channel somewhere, people might happen across it. And there are other people who don't want to spend £25 or whatever it costs for Courtside 1891. Even people who might be interested in basketball but are not interested enough to spend that much money, or we are going through a cost of living crisis and people are looking at where they spend their money. So in order to sort of sell yourself, and the thing is, if nobody can see you, who would sponsor it? So there is that.
Well, 23 out of 24 countries have got a deal, right? So let's be clear, if you're the last one in, it's a problem. If you're the only one that hasn't got a kit sponsor, it's a problem. If you're the only one that hasn't got a TV deal, it's a problem. It's probably about you. It's like looking around the poker table, not being able to work out who the mark is. If you can't figure out who it is, it's you. Right? And it's us. This is internal. This is all internal. And it's been put to shame by the fact that everybody else is what they are. So the courtside thing is there, I think, to hit the American market. To maybe go to countries who've got pay TV deals, but the vast majority of people watching EuroBasket will be watching on national TV channels. Now, you're not telling me, the BBL can get 35 games on TV, right? You're not telling me that the organization of the sport in our country cannot get BBC online or cannot get some form of coverage of 5
particularly when it's already being filmed, so it's not like you're having to
it's just unbelievable. I mean, and as I say, so we go back to Lane's responsibility. Who's responsible? Which director is responsible for that? Who's accountable for that not happening? Now, to be fair, I bet the directors don't know, because the directors won't have ever been given a job. Or ever been given and they're all volunteers. And if you look at their bios, they've all got lots of different things going on. So what actually is this function? There needs to be and some, obviously, I assume we're going to be told who the new chairman is in due course, and obviously that's going to set the direction of the organization for the months to come. But there needs to be an urgent professionalization of this. You cannot run, you cannot be involved in international competitions where the opposition are dealing with players. The opposition have players who are earning $30 to $35 million a year, and run it like an amateur show. You can't. And here's another thing I thought. This window the difficulty for GB and other countries has always been, well, from some of the smaller countries, always been insuring players, right? They now get FIBA insurance, but that FIBA insurance only runs for certain times during the windows. Okay, the window for FIBA purposes in this EuroBasket started August the 6th. So we had no issues with insurance of players after August the 6th to get them into a camp. None, right? We have, every other country has managed to do that. And what we know from primary sources, and this primary source is Chris Morris, who's the GB, effectively team manager, Dog's Body Do It All, Facebook post about Tony Minicello and what he did. That's a primary source. I'm going back to my history. To a primary source. And what we know is that nothing was done until the money was released. Why wasn't the money released? Because of the impasse in relation to not having a chairman.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely nuts and incredibly frustrating. So that said, our guys fly in from Newcastle on Wednesday morning, last team in there, with most likely their most important game on the Friday.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at that group, if there's any chance of getting out of it, the most important game was going to be Ukraine, and Ukraine are both obviously playing with a lot of nationalistic fervor for obvious reasons, and also happen to have two NBA players playing. Yeah. Right, and when we fly in on Wednesday, we have to deal with the questioning on Thursday. And by the way, you're playing against these guys at 1:15 on a Friday.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Should
we talk about that game?
We can. I'm actually just before. Sorry, Dan, I know it's a bit. It is moving towards rant from advocacy. There's a final. The final impact of all of this, which we haven't talked about, and it is kind of a little bit the elephant in the room, is that we have a coach who's never coached in FIBA. I'm not even sure. I can't remember before July. I can't remember if Nate coached in the year. I think he maybe coached a couple of games a couple of years ago in the summer, but never coached a FIBA game in his life, a FIBA rule game in his life. Right. And on top of that is having to coach a bunch of players who he doesn't know. That's a reality, because he hasn't been with them in the windows. He hasn't seen them in over the course of the season, because I'm pretty sure he's not, giving up his Cleveland Cavaliers scouting duties to watch the Manchester Giants on whatever platform on the BBL thing. And there is a significant disconnect, I think, within the group in relation to that as well. Not so much the X's and O's, but you heard Mark Clark talking about it in a couple of the games on an emotional level. And I look at all these other coaches in EuroBasket, and they're all of a type.
Yeah.
Everything, they are hyper. Right? They are all over the place.
Yeah.
They are, everything is, there is a demeanor about them. There is a activity about them. There is an understanding about them. They've grown up with this. And it's the highest point of their career to be doing what they're doing. Right? It is the absolute apotheosis of what they are as basketball coaches. And if you didn't think I was going to get apotheosis in here,
ticked it off.
Absolutely. Right? Everything. Right? And I look at Nate, and I think it's like not something he's never seen before. I just think, and he's been lumped with a horrendous set of circumstances. There isn't any particular emotional connection I can see between him and the players who played for Mark for that many windows. There isn't any. I don't know. There isn't that extra, and I think that's hurt us as well, because. And I obviously I know Mark. I don't really know Nate. I know Mark quite well. I call him a friend. So I'm biased to a certain degree, but I'm going to say this without hopefully putting that to one side. There was a connection, an emotional connection between him and the players.
Yeah.
It was undoubtedly.
You saw it in the post-match press conferences, the interviews they gave and whatever, what they said.
Even in the game, in the games, and I was able to watch him watch him live at Newcastle 2 or 3 times, and I've kind of got an idea what I'm looking for. I didn't know whether I told him I didn't know whether he'd be able to do it, and he did, and he was able to do it, and he picked up an enormous amount of information about his players, about how you make them tick, about getting performances out of them. Out of certain guys that you wouldn't think ordinarily would be, oh, he's going to be a great international basketball player. Well, you look at Ben Mockford or Teddy or whoever. These guys are, and he managed to get performances and a kind of an emotional connection out of them, and they won games away from home and on the road. And if the example I use, and it comes again back down to Mr. Minicello, if he'd coached Jessica Ennis-Hill to win 2 world championships and a European championship, and then 2 months before the Olympics, he was told, by the way, we're not using you. You're just going to come along and be the assistant, but we're going to bring in somebody else who doesn't really know her, give the job. He would have told that person where to go. I'm certain, and as would she. Now, in this situation, that's what's happened, and it's worse in this situation. And this is an organizational thing. This isn't a comment on Nate. I think Nate's been dumped in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Absolutely dumped in it, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's regretting his life choices, etc., because he's been given no shot, right? And there's no question, and there's every likelihood that if Mark was the coach, they'd be losing, we'd still be 0-2, and we'd have lost the last couple of games as well. This isn't a results thing, right? It's a process thing.
Yeah.
Right? If you say that about an individual is nonsense, then about 15 players, a team, it was all about interaction and belief and understanding and kind of group ethos, which is what they've showed over the past 2 months. And then you put somebody, then you change it when it's working. And there's a reason football managers don't get sacked when they're winning. Then that's another level, in my view, of mismanagement. Like it or not, I think it's mismanagement. I don't think Nate should have been dropped in it. And I don't think he should have been doing the EuroBasket. I don't think he's at fault for what's happened.
No.
I don't think it helps. So that's the second thing before we get to the games. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's go to the games. Ukraine 90, Great Britain 61. Obviously the squad, first of all. Philip knee surgery, so he misses out. That was a massive,
it's absolutely massive. He's not just knee surgery. I think but the London signed Devin Van Oostrum as a replacement.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be most of the season, if not all of the season.
Yeah,
and that is brutal. But here's the thing: organisation again. Where's our replacement naturalised player? We haven't got one.
Yeah, we haven't got one.
We've got Sasha Kalea-Jones. I think he was in. He was in maybe in America. He's a big. He's been the second one that they've used. The makeup of the squad when Teddy went down, it was crying out. I thought for another ball handler. We've got, for whatever reason, we haven't been able to reach out to Connor Washington, to be blunt, Kimball McKenzie, Rod Glasgow, naturalised players.
Yeah.
Would have given us a ball handler. And I know it's very difficult at this point to bring it.
Yeah,
who's not been part of it. So
there's an element of
that's planning over it. That's planning over
I get
number of windows.
But Dwayne's been around the squad for a number of years, so it's an easier plug and play sort of.
Oh, you have to bring him in.
You
have to bring Dwayne in, no question. But again, it's a process thing. It's like, well, hang on, why haven't we had some of these guys practicing? In previous windows, have we looked at our depth chart in relation to this? Now, there's an argument to say, look, the position that we're potentially weakest in is Teddy, and it is the point guard spot. And to just have Teddy and Tariq disappear, a week before the EuroBasket was unplannable.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. But again, it's not indicative of an overly flexible organization, what we've seen.
Yeah. So into the game, Nelson, Wheatle, Mockford, Hessen, Olaseni were the starters. 50th cap for Miles Hessen, notable landmark. We scored the first basket. That was our only lead of the game. They scored the next 7. We were 11 down after 9 minutes. And if I'm honest with you, other than a little bit in the second quarter where Soko closed the gap, it just sort of got away.
Well, 2 things. I mean, it was Belgium all over again. They were ready, we weren't. But then again, what? Again, that comes down to time preparation, whatever. I was another thing that kind of raised my eyebrows at was one of the comments in the pre-game press conference. That actually Nate was reported as saying to Mark Woods when he was asked about Carl Wheatle playing the point guard, because for those who don't know, in Italy, Carl's basically a 4-man. He's kind of an undersized 4, plays a little bit of a 3. He isn't really. He's kind of more of a Jamel Anderson type of player in his club. And he played the point guard against Greece away from home. Played very well. We lost by 20, but he had 20 odd points, and he really looked quite good offensively himself. Albeit the team didn't really flow the way you would necessarily hope. But then again, as I say, he's not a true point guard. He's an excellent defender though. But Nate was asked a question about that, and his response was to say, well, we had Carl playing at that position, against Greece, and he's played that position before in a number of the other windows. I then did a double take because he hasn't. He just hasn't. I've watched the windows. I know the windows he's been in. I've seen the games that he's played in. He's never played the point guard position. That might not have been a faithful quote. That may have been, maybe something may have been lost in translation. But it was a double take, which is, well, hang on, how, this is the difficulty when you don't have somebody who's got the knowledge of the previous windows, of the games. So that kind of struggled me. And I still consider it to be, even though he does give you a defensive upside, very almost impossible to expect a guy who doesn't play that role for his club team to slip into it in EuroBasket. So I thought that, and the only way we're going to stay, the problem the GB team has is not its defense or its energy or its hustle or its effort. That's all there, even if it looks bad. The problem is its offense.
Yeah. When
its offense doesn't work, the defense stops working.
61 and 65 in the 2 games.
Yeah, because we don't score. Yeah, and we're in games when we're scoring. We can set up our defense. Yeah. When that offense begins to struggle, hits a cold patch, the wrong combinations are on the court, we can't get a shot up, the other team starts to run.
Yeah.
We don't know where the shots are coming from. We're not anywhere near grooved enough in our offense, to know that they have a floor balance every single time a shot goes up. And people tend to try and, because of that, we're not grooved in it. It kind of degenerates a little bit into one-on-one play.
Well, we end up essentially riding off talent. It becomes a bit isolation, and it's Hessen goes and does something, or Soko goes and does something, or we get it into Gabe and he does something. It's not
fine until the opposition figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you saw that in the second game. The Croatians figured it out.
Yeah.
And so it's offense. So we got to get offense. So you only have 1 point guard in your squad. I would have started him, Van Oostrum, whether he's good, bad, or indifferent. He's a point guard. Put your square peg in a square hole.
Yeah.
It's always, my view. If it doesn't work, then you go to plan B, plan C, whatever. I'm not, then you have the question as to, do we start large, big or small? This game we started kind of back to where we had been with the point guard, with Luke Nelson at the 2, Ben Mockford at the 3, and
Hessen and Olaseni.
I prefer Hessen at the 4. I just think Hessen at the 4. He was guarding Porzingis. He can guard anybody. He's incredibly, he's an underrated player. You could see in a different universe, had he been offered different opportunities, you could see him playing, being PJ Tucker at the Miami Heat. The way he plays, undersized, his battling, his commitment, his energy, and his skill level. But all these teams, everything comes through guard play. Dan, you watch all these games.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all guard
yeah.
play. It's all about screen and roll. It's all about gaining an advantage.
Yeah.
And what we've ended up with is a situation where it has to be Luke Nelson handling the basketball. It has to be Luke Nelson creating the shot. It has to be Luke Nelson making the shot or making the pass. And that's not fair on Luke Nelson, who's given it his all. But B, it's flawed because Luke Nelson is never really been the primary ball handler on the team.
Mm-hmm.
He can do it, but you see that he's not as comfortable doing it as he is catching the ball on the strong side and making a play, coming off a screen. And also, more than that, it wears him down.
Yeah.
It wears him down incredibly. And the way our team has to be built is that it has to be, and it's hard because everything's gone against him. So how do you do it? But, Olaseni, Hessen, and Nelson are there, and everybody else has to find a way of fitting in around them.
Yeah, yeah.
In minutes that we play well. Everybody else to a degree in the group as it's constituted is a solid role player. Be it offense or defense, be it shooter, whatever. And, they had that. They had a situation, they had, 2 months ago against slightly different level competition, but the last few windows before the last one, they had that with, they were getting stuff out of point guard, out of Teddy, getting stuff out of Mockford, getting defensive minutes out of Jamal, who seems to have just been forgotten about. Despite being, as Mark Clark absolutely correctly said, our best defensive player.
Yeah.
So, it's tough to pick apart the games because the games are what the games are. It's also tough to turn around and say, oh, well, you should do this differently, you should do that differently, because I think we are, it's like starting a marathon at the finishing line and having to run back to the start line after everybody else has already started at the start line. Literally run 2 marathons, run one before the other team starts, the opposition, run one whilst the other team's running the main one. So the only thing that they really had that they could take out of what they have is consistency, and that's gone. And when consistency is gone, and the point in Teddy's gone, and Tariq's gone, and different people are playing different positions which they're not used to, then all you have left is kind of that old illusionist team spirit. Yeah. And we don't have that either because we do have that. That's wrong. Sorry. The team has that. The team has that in spades. They have it in abundance. They've demonstrated that they have it in abundance. But we have a disconnect, in the emotional kind of commitment, or the demonstration of the coach, because Nate's trying to figure things out. You see it when the cameras click onto him. His eyes are, almost wide, thinking, what can I do now? What can I do now? What can I do now? But what's being lost in that is if the coach isn't able to decide this is the way we're going to go, then the players are never going to be able to do it. So I just think it's to quote Malcolm Tucker,
careful.
It's an omni shambles.
Okay.
If it was assistant Jamie, I probably couldn't do that. It's an omni shambles. But it's Gary, again, to quote Gary Neville, it all starts at the top. And we have to talk a little bit about basketball and a little bit about team cohesion, because that's what we have to do. But even this game, going under screens on Svi Mihailuk. This guy's a nailed on 6'7" NBA level shooter. We're going under screen. He played the game like he was in, half asleep. 20 points, 20 minutes. And I know the scouting report won't have been that. And that kind of befuddlement of minds, if the players are uncertain, if the direction isn't, straight ahead, then that's when the mistakes come in. And against these guys, Alex Len turning over his left shoulder, jump hook, turning over his left shoulder, jump hook, turning over his left shoulder, jump hook. if they're not put in the best position to succeed, then sadly, it's easy for the opposition. Because we crack.
Yeah. Well, the 19-2 run in the third quarter was the moment of crackage. 72-44 with 8 minutes to play in that game, and we sort of melted away. Mikhailuk, as you mentioned, 17-5, 4 assists, 3 steals. Len with 13 was the second top scorer. Nelson led GB 16-5. He was 6 of 13 shooting, which was actually the best on the team, which shows you how we struggled to put the ball in the basket.
Nelson just looks like he's ready to play.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't, you know, the first game against Belgium, he was clearly, it was his welcome back game from, you know, getting back into the rhythm against the summer. Against Latvia, I saw with my own eyes, he was ready to play. In the 2 games that we've played, he's been ready to play. But, you know, these other teams are scouting as well, you know.
They have video too.
They have video too, you know, and it's, you know, and they know you take away A, B, and C, you know, you take him away, and you, to a certain degree, you take Miles away, and you know, then they know that somebody else has to kind of step into it, and it's tough. But no, he really, to be fair with me, you know, he's been our ray of sunshine.
Olaseni 10-9, Hessen 10 points, 22 of 66 field goal shooting for Great Britain, although we were 9 of 20 from 3. Let's quickly run through the other game. Great Britain.
I mean, we were 13 of 46 from 2, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, 13 of 46.
Yes, yeah.
There's a downside to that stat, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Hence why we scored 61.
Yeah.
Great Britain 65, Croatia 86. Clark into the starting lineup for Mockford, so a much bigger lineup for Great Britain on that change. Matkovic comes in for Zubac for the Croatians, which caught the commentary team by surprise. They weren't quite sure about that. There was some supposition that maybe they thought we're only playing Great Britain and we'll be all right.
Well, they were right, weren't they? Bluntly. But well, look, these tournaments are long tournaments.
Yeah. And you're playing every day,
and you don't, you know, 4 out of 6 qualify.
Yeah.
Knockout games, so it's a question of peaking at the right time. And you're not going to burn your guys unnecessarily, and when they're playing so many games in such a short period of time. So there is a bit of strategy comes into it that way. Look, Croatia are really good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's people, they got, you know, the guys we've even the guys I've heard about with my passing knowledge of NBA and European basketball, you know, Dario Saric, high level, Zubac, starting center in the NBA, Hezonja, played in Real Madrid, EuroBasket, played for the Magic and for the Knicks, and Bogdanovic, who, you know, who's guarded LeBron James in massive games, you know, and who I thought Miles Hessen did really, really well against. He really got to try to get under his skin. You know, that's 4 for a start, and then you've got the multitude of guards who can shoot to play around.
Yeah.
So they are really good,
and they're consistently good over well, since the country came into existence.
I mean, you know, that was the first team. They took the Dream Team to the final in '92, and Kukoc and Raja and those guys, you know. So yeah, just an absolute basketball powerhouse.
Scrappy game at the beginning, though, wasn't it?
It was, and I thought they played. It's hard to say they played. We played hard.
Yeah.
The matchups, basically we changed again. We went to Carl Wheatle was still the point guard, Luke Nelson's at 2, but now Miles Hessen's at the 3, Dan Clark's at the 4, Gabe Olaseni's at the 5. It's tough if you're Miles Hessen to have to play in a different position compared to the day before. You know, and there's a massive difference between being a 4 and being a 3. Because the 4 is the stretch guy who's playing inside, outside, and the 3 is the wing. You know, so it's not, whereas playing, the difference between playing a 4 and a 5, sometimes they can rotate, or they can alternate. So you're giving him a new job, and so he's having to run, which you haven't done in the previous 3 games. So he's not run different patterns in the sets that they run. You've started Dan Clark to give you more size and experience, which is fine. And you've got to start Olaseni. But you do lose, I mean, even though Dan Clark's in the game as a 4, you have to create shots for him. And you do lose a little bit of quickness on the court. And I thought what happened was we did hit them in the face, and we did actually compete with them extremely well in the first half. And then we still need a bit, Ovi still looks a bit lost. He's getting cheap fouls. I don't know whether he's comfortable in whatever role he's been given. He's a game changer for us. He's probably the most gifted individual player that we have. And he can play within the team concept. It's not like he's a loose cannon, but you just get the impression that he's not quite sure when he should be attacking and when he should be moving the ball, And notwithstanding that, we kind of hung in.
Yeah. So we down 3 at the end after the end of the first quarter. I thought we'd given them some good looks, but Hessen basically kept us in the game. Then went 0 for 10 in the first 5 minutes of the second quarter, just a couple of free throws. And you were wondering then if it was going to get away at 19-28, but Hessen again helped drag us back in 24-28. Bogdanovic with the 3, Nelson with the turnover. They had a dunk, and again it goes to 9. There were a couple of interesting calls that I thought both ways. I thought there was an unsportsmanlike foul that was not called. I thought Hessen got away with one defensively. I did see Hazonia berating the officials after the game in the press, but we were only 31-37 down at halftime. Hessen had 16 points. We shot 27% from 2-point range and 13% from 3-point range, and we were only down 6 at halftime.
Yeah, which is kind of why I put it down a little bit more to Croatia than to us. I think we did play physically. If we're playing with Miles at the 3, then we're going to be physical. Yeah, that's by definition we have to be. Carl Wheatler's a physical defensive point guard. When we played against Latvia, we were physical with them. We got into them as well, and that I think possibly took Croatia aback a little bit early. I don't think they got into their rhythm either. But the lineup that we started with, I think, was a one-shot shot, if you know what I mean. Because at half-time, their coach came out, seeing what we were doing, and they were able to get out and run in the third quarter.
Well, Nate, because they put the microphones into the huddles, Nate said, first 3 minutes, really important. They're going to come at us, so we need to be conscious of that. I thought we were sloppy offensively. Defensively,
we were sloppy offensively the whole first half.
Well, there is that.
Just down by 6.
True.
Shot 27% and 13%. Nothing changed.
But defensively, on the switches, that Zubac had 2 wide open dunks, and Nate called a timeout after 2.5 minutes, and we were down 11.
Yeah, and they started to run off our misses.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those examples of a coach just kind of saying to his team, "Look, you don't just have to show up to win this game. You're gonna have to play."
Yeah.
And I thought we, it looked awful when you lose a quarter 35-9.
Yeah.
But our offensive, what was our offense in that quarter, 2 or 15 or something?
Yeah.
But that wasn't far off what we were in the first quarter and in the second quarter. If it wasn't for Miles Hessen digging us out with Miles Novi digging us out with tough shots.
So out of that timeout, turnover led to a Sarachan 1, 14 points. Soko got blocked. Bogdanovic for 3. Nelson missed a 3. Zubac had a putback. 33-52. Second time out. It was a 15-2 start at that point. 6 minutes and 12 seconds to go. You kind of touched on it a little earlier about Nate's personality. Now, I first met Nate in, I think it was 1996 or something. He's never really been that guy, you know, like as a player, he wasn't that guy, but there was part of me in the timeout just wanted to throw the clipboard and maybe not quite go full Ergen Ataman, but a bit Ataman, you know, just something to try and light a fire at that point.
Yeah, you have to dig them out a little bit, whatever. I think I've said before on the podcast that I wasn't ever sure whether, you know, given Mark's limited experience, he would ever be able to, you know, coach the guys that we have the level of talent and depth and experience we have. And it was only when he did the timeout in the first game he did away in Montenegro, after they came out and they blitzed us in the first 4 minutes, and I think they were 15-4 or something. He basically called the timeout and basically dug into the guys. He said, "Look, we are better than this. Let's remember what we had done." And that made me believe that he could do it, because you could have that conversation with them. It's not what you do in the NBA. It's not what you do in the G League, because you're certainly in the G League when it's coached, you have so many different players coming through all the time. It's difficult to get kind of emotional connections to what is going on. That's why it's so different. He also, as I say, you don't get the impression, if you're on the court, you compare him to some of the maniacs who are coaching the other teams. You don't get the impression that he's fighting every step for you. That doesn't mean he's not, but you don't get that kind of, oh, he's going to do this for us, he's going to do that for us, he's in our corner type of thing. Because ultimately, you know, you're getting blitzed. You're all over Europe. They've just gone on a 15-0 run on you. You've got 2 timeouts in 4 minutes. Something has to change. And it's not which player you're going to run offensively.
No.
You know. So yeah, but that's, as I said, it's FIBA. But you know, to be absolutely fair to the guy, he is a novice in relation to FIBA basketball coaching compared to every other coach out there.
Yeah.
He's not a novice in basketball. He's one of Great Britain's greatest ever players. He's managed to get himself, you know, to the point of being an assistant coach for an NBA team, so he knows what he's talking about. But, you know, the last time we had a guy who was like that, you know, Joe Prunty, who was a high-level assistant coach in the NBA, we didn't win the games then either. You know, so it's just there's a connection missing there. And it's probably not even a connection that would have made any difference to the results of the basketball.
No. I know, and maybe that's just me, and maybe it has no effect at all. But it's just one of those things where I wanted it to be one of those timeouts where, as a commentator, you hear the director go, "Apologize for that, quick, cut that, apologize for that." You know what I mean? Because he said something, and just and. Maybe it has no effect, but it just felt like at that point. And as you say, I'm comparing him to guys at the other end of the floor and around, which is not fair, because that's not who he is. But
it's not who he is. It's also, he hasn't got the resources, the tools, the knowledge, the knowledge of his own players, the knowledge of the opposition players, the information, support. It hasn't got anything. You know, he's literally taking a pen to a knife fight. You know. Just in an awful position, but that's why it's an omni shambles.
True.
Everything is against these guys. Everything.
So you mentioned 35-9 in the third quarter. It was 72-40 at the end of the period. Patrick Whelan came in, made a few shots. I just wonder whether maybe that could have been an option slightly earlier in the game.
I don't know why he wasn't. I don't know why he was taking out the rotation, because he's been actually one of our more solid players. And from what I can see, I know why he's taking out the rotations, because Miles becomes the 3. That means Ben Mockford comes off the bench as first jump off the bench. Which probably isn't a role Ben Mockford suited for, and therefore Patrick Whelan then becomes the next guy. And even then, after Carl Whittle's played the point, he then halfway through the second quarter he starts playing on the wing. So he's starting playing the point. Then most of the game he's not playing the point.
Mockford only took 2 shots as well, and if Mockford is there, he has to shoot the ball, doesn't he? In that with that team.
Well, yeah, but the ball stopped moving down.
Yeah, true, true.
Ben Mockford needs, he has to run to the corners, the ball has to move, and people have to find him, right? And the ball wasn't moving. Once you get into that kind of trough,
and again, the point guard issue
and the
probably
point
hurts him more than anybody else, doesn't it?
Well, I think it does, but I think the one kind of consistent thread that they reached during the windows over the past 18 months was this idea that we have a point guard, we have a scoring guard who's generally always Luke Nelson, and when Luke wasn't there, they struggled. And then we have a shooter. And it ended up being Ben Mockford most of the time, or Gareth Murray occasionally, or latterly Patrick Whelan. Yeah. And that makes you small, but it allows you, and then it was either, if Miles Hessen was here, Miles would be the 4, if not, it'd be Dan Clark. Yeah. It makes you small, but it allows you to space the court. Right, and we don't have enough space, and we can't get, because
it requires you to make a lot of 3-point shots, but it's probably the only way we can beat these teams.
Dan, what did you say we were? 13 of 46.
Yeah.
We need to be shooting 50 a game. Should be shooting 53.
Yeah.
No, I'm not being. Gabe. If Gabe was saying, you can't throw the ball to him in the post and expect him to score regularly over 7-foot guys. He's a screen and roll guy. He needs to screen and get the ball on the move and be aggressive around them. It's really good. But,
and again, he's impacted by the point guard
he's
situation.
Absolutely impacted by the point guard situation. But no screen and roll play, So the whole thing is dysfunctional, unfortunately. But but starting that again, Whelan being the one who didn't come in, and then to be honest, the one thing that kind of really made my eyebrows raise, 6 feet above my head, was bringing back Heston and Olaseni with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I didn't see that at all. I still don't see the logic of that. No. You've got, that's why you have 12 guys. That's why you have Dwayne. That's why you have Jamel. If they're not going to play in meaningful minutes, then you might reduce 32 to 21. Yeah. Nobody's walking out of that gym feeling good about themselves, whatever the score is.
No.
And the risk of Miles twisting his ankle. It just struck me as like, well, what are we chasing here? There's a line where you've just got to say no. Enough's enough. We don't play. We'll come back and we'll try and start again. I thought that was muddled thinking. I'll be honest. I thought that was muddled thinking. There's a time, you can say, oh, well, we'll finish strongly and we'll take something good in the next game. But I thought that was far too far gone. And
actually, to me, the good was Whelan.
The good was Whelan, absolutely. Whelan was good.
Until about 3 minutes to go in the third quarter and was second top scorer.
And you might see
something from one of the other guys who hasn't played.
You might see something from Anderson, you might see something from out here which you can use, but we have to be very careful with the pressure that these, as I say, that the three of them are under, Nelson, Hessen, and Olaseni, is immense. And we have to be in a position whereby we are protecting them to a certain degree. If the aim is they're coming against Greece next. Miles is going to be guarding Giannis. Right. He did not need to be playing the last 5 minutes against a Croatian team that was by 30. No. I'm sorry. You'll never convince me otherwise of that. Never. And he probably maybe he wanted to play, he wanted to go back on, but you'll never convince me otherwise. But no, Pat Whelan, we know he can shoot. He's a 46% shooting BBL, and ultimately the rims, the line is the same distance away. In EuroBasket, and he was a starting 5 member against. I think Mark Clark pointed out he's a starting 5 member in the World Cup games. And he can get to the basket. I know it's a different level, and I haven't seen enough. He's a great finish. He's a great BBL finish at the basket. He's tested in EuroBasket, but he does still have that. Him and his brother both are really good finishers around the basket. But that was a little bit bizarre. But then, I'm coming back to, Teddy, Tariq.
Yeah.
It's not, where do you find the creativity? It's really hard. I get that.
So Hessen top scored with 18 points, 7 of 17 shooting and 5 rebounds. Whelan had 5 of 7 for 14 points in his cameo. Olaseni 10 and 5. They were 22 of 72 shooting overall, 6 of 25 from behind the arc. So 16 of 48, is that? Yeah. I think
22
so.
of 72. So again, we're under the 30%.
Yeah.
You can't stay close.
No. Bogdanovic, Saric, and Zubac all had 15. Hazonia 13 and 10. 31 of 62. They shot 50% in that game. So I'll give you the results from Group C. On day one, Friday, Ukraine obviously beat GB 90-61. Greece beat Croatia 85-89. Italy pretty comfortable against Estonia 83-62. And then on Saturday, 65-86 in the Great Britain-Croatia game. Ukraine, incredible victory for them. Their only lead of the game against Estonia was the final score, 73-71. I don't know if you saw the game-winning basket.
No.
It was a bonkers. I forget who it was. Somebody shot a 3 and it got blocked, and it airballed so far short that Sodorov, a run from the 3-point line, caught the ball and laid it in. It was like, how do you get a winning basket off a blocked 3-point shot? And Greece beat Italy 85-81. So the standings.
I did watch that game.
Yeah.
I did watch that game. That was a game.
Yeah.
The Italians would not go away. The Greeks, Greece, Slovenia, Serbia, maybe France or Croatia, or I think certainly I think the Greek, Serbia, and Slovenia are the best 3 teams at the moment. Lot can happen in one-off games.
Yeah.
That's not including the Spanish, who will be there. Who will grow into it, no doubt.
No doubt. So Ukraine have won the 2 games that they needed to win. So they're almost playing with house money from here on out. They are 2-0. So are Greece 2-0. Croatia 1-1. Italy 1-1, and Estonia and Great Britain both looking for their first victory at 0-2. And obviously one of them will get it when they play each other. Unlikely from here for Great Britain to qualify, you would say. Even if they beat Estonia, they would need to win either against Greece or Italy.
I love you. This commentator's understatement that you bring into this podcast.
Yeah.
Unlikely. It would be miraculous to beat either Greece or Italy. In the level, I mean, in the depths at which we're at the moment. Emotionally, not necessarily talent-wise, but emotionally, in just the whole unit kind of looks broken. It's difficult to see. We're going to play hard. We're going to keep playing hard, but basketball at the highest levels, it's about that self-belief as well, and I don't think we have it. I think any type of sheen or kind of force field we had around us, I think it's just gone. I think the phases, force field is down and the phases are trained on us.
Yeah.
If you're a James T. Kirk fan, which I was 30 years ago, but I've grown out of. I just think that we know we're sitting there ready to be picked off, and I do think that teams will be sharing the minutes around against us because they expect to win.
Yeah.
I do think that might give us an avenue into a couple of the games, but it's just a really disappointingly sad, wasted opportunity and betrayal of the players. That's what it is. They've been left out there to marinate in their own juices, basically. and there's just nothing around them. There's nothing. And it's kind of easy to ruminate on it, and for people to look at this and think, oh well, he's just saying nice things about the players because maybe he wants to speak to them or talk to them or be friends with them or all that stuff. And it's not. It's not. It's a genuinely detailed assessment of all the circumstances, in my opinion, which is all it is, about what I know about basketball players and sportsmen, all that stuff, which is that they have, that this is the greatest example of a group of people being set up to fail.
Yeah.
I can remember.
Yeah.
Being set up to fail. It's almost as if, I got an email from Basketball England this week. I'm on the mailing list, yeah?
Yeah.
Basketball England are obviously a constituent part of GB Basketball.
This is Dave filling whilst he searches his emails. For those listening to the podcast and not watching.
Yeah, here we go. I've got it. Basketball England news, the newsletter.
Yeah.
Number one story on the newsletter, the first thing you see. Summerfield 3x3 tournament, a big success. Basketball England and 3x3 United, Dutch Sport for Development Organisation, hosted a 3x3 tournament.
3x3.
3x3, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm at 48, I'm not 17. A 3x3 tournament at Birmingham's iconic Summerfield Park last Sunday, etc. 36 teams, glorious sunshine, local spectators, recapping gallery night. Okay, that's number one on the list. Number two, Aspire workforce recruitment underway for 2022-2023. Very important, Preparations for the Aspire program, which is a youth talent development program run by Basketball England, continues with the expression of interest for staff positions. Absolutely critical. Find out more and apply. Click here. Number three, GB men run Latvia close but can't claim a win. Number three, behind the 3x3 tournament, and a message to your coaches, please sign up for the Aspire quickly because we might miss it if it's a week.
Yeah.
How, on any logical assessment of hierarchy, how can that demonstrates what priority these guys are to the organizations? And it might just be an example, and it might be me being a little bit clever. Smart, finding something to fit kind of the narrative I'm trying to put forward. But I did think about it when I saw it.
Yeah, I got the same email and I didn't clock that, but now you say it.
I'm thinking about it's third on the list. Following, and also that's the one which says, he's confirmed the 12-man roster.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, all 12 are English.
Yeah, I suppose if they are all English. I suppose the comparative thing would be if GB women were about to play in the Olympics, would the FA put out an email talking about a local tournament and coaching first ahead of the GB women's Olympic team?
I think you've got an idea about that.
Yeah.
I think you have.
Yeah.
And again, it just kind of hit me. And I mean, as I said, it could be formatting. It could be
it could be.
He was a low level employee who's just doing what he's told.
And to be fair, the first two things are directly relevant to that organization, and the third thing is indirectly relevant.
Yeah, I'm not taking you on that one. I don't. If you are a constituent member of Great Britain basketball, which you are, without Basketball England, there is no Great Britain basketball, right? Then it's your job to push our heroes every which way you can. You have to create heroes. You have to put these guys on the pedestal to which they've deserved because they've spent their whole professional lives working towards playing for their country. You should be shouting them from the rooftops. You should be using them in your marketing.
Yeah, because
They
that's
should be
what
everywhere.
the Aspire kids are aspiring to.
Absolutely. They should be everywhere. And in fact, they're below a 3-on-3 tournament, 3x tournament, 3x3.
And a 3x3 thing that comes off the back of Miles Hess and Jamel Anderson.
Yeah. And winning the Commonwealth Games.
And winning the Commonwealth Games. And the other two as well. I just refer to them because they're in the current GB squad.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just utterly, from my perspective, utterly brutal, demonstrative in my world of a disconnect.
Yeah.
Absolute disconnect.
Well, I think on that happy note, we need to go out and embrace Sunday evening on that one. Dave and I will likely come back next Sunday for a post-mortem, or is that too clickbaity to call it a post-mortem before?
I don't know. What I can do is I can find a very useful. I'll find a forensic pathologist to come along and do it with us.
To talk about, we could be talking about the first knockout game, because that's on Saturday, isn't it? If GB can find a way to win, so let's put a positive spin on the ending. We'll see. But your face says it all there for the viewers. So let's go. We'll be back next week to break down the remaining games in Group C in EuroBasket. But for now, have a great week. Goodbye.